Welcome everyone to the Redux webinar. We're really glad you can make it. Thank you for taking the time to be out here. We have some really fun announcements today, some fun things that we're going to be talking about, and we hope that you are excited about them as much as we are. So today we're going to talk again about Ajax Speed. If you were previously at our last webinar in April, there's a little bit of a repeat in the beginning just for people who are newcomers. But then we'll dive into panel templates and how you can use that to completely customize your Redux experience in HTML and do any modifications you want. And then we'll also be talking about some really powerful things with the customizer. I hope that you're excited about that. And Redux, as always, our entire point is for you to download and include the framework, make a few modifications, and we hope that it helps you make money. Because if it is helping you make money, then it's serving its purpose. So that you know about Redux, we're actually just a modge podge of the entire world. These are the top areas in all of Redux where developers are located. It's phenomenal. We're really impressed by all of you. Lots of you use different browsers. 4% of you still use Internet Explorer, and we encourage you to change. But 15% of you are female. What a blessing that is. We're grateful to have more ladies in the house because we need more ladies. We need that experience, that opinion. 177 different countries, 127 languages. It's amazing, and we're grateful for each and every one of you. In the past year, or since 2013, our developers have increased. We started with a measly 200 developers, progressed to 2,300 developers, and as of yesterday, we had 7,435 known developers. That's incredible. I just cannot. I'm just so grateful for that. Yeah. And also our user base has increased dramatically as well. We know this because we instantiated in 2014 an opt-in tracking system, and to date we have known of 462,000 people who have opted into tracking across the world. That is your users who are saying, I'm willing to be tracked. And we'll be showing you in the coming months, we'll be adding a feature where you can drill down and see that and how that affects you. But things like tracking allows us to know what versions of PHP we have to make sure we're compatible with. If we have a problem with a plugin, we know what kind of an impact it will have on your user base. And so it's very important for us to know that stuff. Also, we have been growing just on WordPress.org. This is a comparison of 4 of the top frameworks on WordPress.org. And just so you know, WordPress.org is no longer allowing frameworks to run as plugins. They're no longer accepting them. This is it. And we've been grandfathered in. We're one of the youngest, but as you can see, we have the greatest weekly downloads. We're growing so fast. And we were actually just at 200,000 just a little bit ago. But what's really, this is powerful. This is on WordPress.org. But what's amazing about this is that only accounts for about 14% of Redux instances, because most of the developers embed Redux. So this is just a small segment of our growth. It's incredible. We're really excited about it. If you haven't heard, in Redux 3.5 we made some massive speed improvements, like insanely massive. We have reduced a lot of overhead, we've reduced extra processes, and best of all, we've added Ajax Save. How fast is Ajax Save, you might ask? Well, we did a comparison. We took an old panel in SMOF. SMOF is a smart option framework, one of the more known panels, and that panel took about 4 seconds to load. Then we took it and put it in the new Redux that we just pushed out, 3.5 plus, and we got it down to 1.69 seconds. But now with Ajax Save, it only takes about a second. It's actually less than a second to save. That is quite an amazing improvement. And if you try the new Redux, you will see that. And we encourage you to update your products. Or if you're new to Redux, just know that it's there. And it's there to benefit you. I think we're one of the fastest frameworks now out there. So now let's go on to some new content. We're going to talk about panel templates. Panel templates are the way for you to take the Redux panel and change the HTML, change the pieces of it so that you can make it look like anything you want. And you can find that documentation right now up online at docs.reduxframework.com/core/templates. It's really easy to use. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that today. So how do you do it? First of all, you go into the Redux core and there's a new folder called templates. Within that folder is the panel templates. You copy that folder to a new location inside your code. Why do you copy? Well, I want you to know that you should never, ever modify the Redux core. Always move things out of the core and apply it with hooks. We've made Redux extremely extensible so that you can overload any file, any class, anything. And the reason we've done this is because we've also made it so that Redux can be embedded in plugins. If, say, you're a theme developer and you've embedded Redux, but you've made some modifications to the panel within your Redux folder, and suddenly a plugin comes along that's also using Redux, that plugin will override your theme's version of Redux. We've done that by design so that we can have a plugin that your users can install that will override whatever you embed in the theme so they could get updates if they choose to go that route. So please make sure that you move things from the core. So you copy that panel anywhere, that directory panel to any location in your code, and you just set the global Redux argument of templates path, and that's it. Now some of you might say, well, what if you change something? What if you change the HTML or classes? Well, we use a templating version just like other products out there. If dev mode is on, you'll be alerted if your panel is different or older than the version of the panel we use. But we promise you that your panel will never break. We won't break the code. We're not interested in that. We are rabid about making sure that our code is backwards compatible. And we hope that you've seen that through your time with Redux, or if you're new, we hope that it gives you confidence that we will make sure that Redux is always backwards compatible. So now, I don't know if you've heard, this is fairly new, but all WordPress.org themes must use the customizer instead of a settings API panel or a standard panel page. This is a rule that's been deemed, it's in effect, and there's no getting out of it, there's no changing. If you'd like to read more about it, you can actually read the most commented about WordPress Tavern post ever, and you can see the reaction by the animation. People were not exactly happy about this, but don't worry, we have a couple things up our sleeve. What does this mean for frameworks though? Well, let's look at those 4 frameworks we talked about previously. Titan framework, Option Tree, Redux, and Option framework. If these frameworks do not adapt, they will no longer be able to be used in themes on WordPress.org. I already know that a few of these frameworks are planning to stop development because of this new rule set, but I want you to know that we have a plan. We have 2 announcements to make today about the customizer. Announcement number 1. If you haven't heard of Kirky, you should know. Kirky is a sister project to Redux Framework. We're not merging, but we're now under the same umbrella, the same organization, working together. Kirky is a really powerful customizer-only framework. And what we're doing right now is we're working to make sure that the data output is exactly identical between Redux and Kirky. So if you choose to use one or the other, you can. You can learn all about Kirky right now at kirky.org. I want you to know that these will always be separate. Kirky will always be a light framework. The point of it is to be light. Redux framework will always be a hefty framework. It can be slimmed down, but it's the Swiss Army knife. And so we're working together because they're different audiences, but we're trying to ensure that you're happy with the Redux products and everything that we do as a team. But today, we're going to talk about how Redux and the customizer go together. So right now, you know and love Redux, and you know about the customizer, but now they're going to get some love. They're going to unite and become one. And we're going to talk about this. We're integrating Redux to use both the customizer and panels. And more than any other framework, we're making Redux work at the same time. So you can go to a panel within your standard Redux panel, and you can also go to the customizer and the same IDs will cross over. They'll pass back and forth. They'll save. We think that that's important because there's things that belong in the panel and there are things that we believe belong in the customizer, and we wanted to give you that power. But we need your help. This is a big task. This is a lot of work. And if you go to this URL or just go to ideas.reduxframework.com, you can see we've created a crowdfunding project asking you, the community, to help us to fund the effort to encourage us to not take other jobs so that we can work full-time on this. Without your help, it's not going to happen. Just so that you don't think, though, that this is all smoke and mirrors, let's do a little example of where the demo is today. We actually have here a fully functional Redux panel. And you can all access this right now at demo.redux.io. But what's really fun is we also have now, also available on demo.redux.io, a fully functional customizer variation of this exact same panel. Everything in this panel that, if it's changed, will update live in the customizer. If I reload the customizer page, and then I go over here to the sliders. Internet's always slow when you're streaming a video. But if you go over to the slider, it's already saved. All of the fields of Redux are already saving back and forth between panels and the customizer. And you can even set certain fields to be customizer only, and soon you will be able to set panel only and stuff like that. We want to put this into the core, and we want to make it free. In the past, how we funded the project was by encouraging people to purchase extensions. And while that's all well and good, we feel that this feature right here needs to be free and available to everybody. And that's why we're doing this campaign. So if you find it within yourself to even give $5 or $10, you would really assist the overall project. Where we're at right now is the customizer saving back and forth, but we want to bring back required, we want to bring back validation, we want to bring in compiler hooks, serialization, or sterilization. We want to make everything work just like in the panel, but in the customizer. And so if you can help us, we can make that happen. Please do help us. Now, let's talk a little bit about the roadmap of Redux. We've had a roadmap for this year that we actually pretty much already hit. Step number one was, of course, Ajax Save. We wanted to be able to have that happen. And we implemented that, and now that's available to everybody. You need only update, and it's there. You can disable it if you want through an option, just so you're aware. Then we did support URLs. If you haven't heard about that, go watch our last webinar, or go to support.redux.io. The concept is now we can know everything about your instance or your user's instance and save ourselves a lot of dev time. And in the future, we're going to be offering that service to you for your users. Step 3 is what we're working on, the better customizer support. In fact, we're interested in complete and total customizer integration. The same experience of Redux as you had before, but only in the customizer. And then we're also working on reducing the footprint of Redux. How we're doing that is we're offloading a lot of our vendor scripts to CDN. Now that doesn't work fully for WordPress.org, but let me give you an example. We've already implemented in the GitHub repo a version of Redux that uses CDN. Now we've reduced the size of Redux by 2 megs because of that. The majority of our weight is in our vendor products, and so we're trying to minimize that and bring it back together. We will have a plugin released or a code base that you can use to embed those locally for people who need to use WordPress.org, but the goal is to try and make Redux overall faster, lighter, and more efficient. So, okay. So our last, again, please, if you find it within yourself, please support Redux in this effort. We're trying to keep development going. We're trying to make everything work. But now it's time for you. Question and answer. We're here to answer your questions. We hope that you like what Redux is doing, and we hope that you get involved. because we literally are affecting hundreds of thousands of people across the world, and we like to believe that we're building a better experience for all users. So do we have any questions? This is the time right now where we'll help you if you need coding help. If you have a question about doing some basic things, we'll gladly do that. Does anybody want any coding help? Here's Mohammed. Oh, I'm unmuting you. Go ahead, Mohammed. Hello. Great. How are you doing? Fantastic. What can I do for you? Uh-huh. I'm not sure. The customizer? I'm sorry, the connection's a little light. Sorry, could you say that again? Oh yes, the layers. Yes, the layers theme. Yep. Our customizer is fields. It's not really that different other than we have 36 different fields. 36 different field types. If you would like, you can go to docs.reduxframework.com and then you go to core and fields. We have the largest framework used by the most people, but what we're doing is we're just bringing them into the customizer. We don't have the advanced things. We're not a page builder like Layers is. Whoops, wrong page. We're not a page builder like Layers, but we offer similar functionality, whereas we offer field input. And we build tools around that. If you haven't used Redux Framework, you're welcome to download the plugin or go to demo.redux.io. But essentially what we have is probably more field types. So if there's a variety of information or a variety of ways that you want to collect information from your user for use in your themes, that's what Redux can offer you. You can use it in tandem with with Layers. You could easily run Redux for Redux stuff and Layers for the builder stuff. It's not a problem. It's up to you. You are so welcome. Now we have another question. Can you please give an example of a panel template?
I saw that coming.
Yeah, Kevin told me this was going to happen, so yeah, actually. Here, let's just take a look at it really quick. Get my good old trusty PHP Storm out. Okay, a panel template is essentially the container where Redux pieces load. You can modify where the notice bar comes, you can modify where the header goes, you can even remove the entire header if you so choose. It's completely up to you. And the point of this is so that you can customize. A lot of people have done customizations through CSS, which is great and wonderful, and you're welcome to do that. This is a step further. We've decoupled the templating from the actual framework, and we put it into templates with a template version checker. So give me a second to get this right out. Okay, plugins. Yes, this is my environment. I have lots of stuff that I do. Redux core templates panel. Okay, so here we have the container. This is the primary container, and you'll notice at the top it has a header and the version. This is the version of Redux that this panel actually was instantiated. This is the extended piece. If you go to the Redux demo, like standard demo, here we'll do this in tandem. Here's the extender. Let's scale this out. So this is the primary container. This initializes the fields, and this is a hidden input field that's needed. This is the subfooter. So this is the outside container of everything. Here's the subfooter. Then you can also modify, if you wish, the menu container and how it works. Redux group menu, that's this section. It's Redux sidebar with all the hooks and everything. As long as you utilize the hooks, that's what we're basing everything on. You can customize the footer, which is everything to do with the footer and the Ajax loading piece. can also modify the content. This is the main content container right here, this area. Here's the main container. We're going to get the sticky header, which appears here. This is the sticky header if you scale down to a larger field. The sticky header is when you change this. That sticky header. See how the settings there? So basically you can take this and modify all the HTML elements, and then you can also take the Redux style sheet, modify that, and do anything you want with Redux. You can change it to be any style. You can put the navigation on the right. You could put the navigation in a drop-down menu up at the top. It's all up to you and how you interpret the data. I hope that answers your question. Does that help?
Hopefully.
Great. He said yes. Are there any other questions? Does anyone... Okay, Joe, I'm gonna unmute you so you can explain this. Joe.
Hey guys. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Yeah, I think this was brought up last time. Another guy asked the question, and is it possible, or will it be possible soon, to to create a field with an option, and I just use the example of, say, just a hex color. Say I want to give my users the ability to choose a primary color for their website, and that's going to apply to all their links and buttons and whatnot, just a lot of different things. There may be 50 places in my CSS style sheet I would have that color, but since I like to use less, is there a way to use that option in as a less variable? So I can just put it in the less variable.
Yeah, it's actually really easy to do. What the previous user was talking about was us doing it for you and taking it and creating variables out of the Redux array, which I guess we could do. Here's a really simple bit of code. I'll throw it out there for you. New file. Okay, so say your op name is Redux. I don't know, whatever you call your op name. So if you wanted to instead turn that into variables, just do a global variable override. Or I would do it in an array. You can do this. For each Redux as key array. Value. It's not responding as well as I do because it's on a webinar and it's slowing my computer down. So then you do string dot equals at key colon dot value semicolon. And then the string in the end is your entire array based on that, those keys. Now, if you wanted to limit this to specific ones, you could say keys equal array, and say I only want to make variables for header, color, header, footer, color, something like that, right? With a comma. And then you do a little check in here. If in array, I always forget which way it goes for in array. Come on.
Needle haystack.
Okay, thank you. Needle. Keys. If in array. Whoops. If in array. Now suddenly you're only passing in the variables for your variable file that are in the array that you've specified. So that's all it takes to make that. 5 lines of code. We can do that, I guess, if it's a big enough need, but I think this is such simple code that you could do that. Don't you?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think, how would I get this then into my variables less file?
So you'd have to save out the file directly in some way. You can use the Redux File API that we already have some examples on our documents for, but this is how you construct the string that you would use. If you're, yeah, so that's the best way to do it.
In a compiler hook, perhaps?
Yeah, in a compiler hook. So have you played with the compiler hook before?
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't fully understand it.
Okay, so let me explain
yeah,
the compiler hook really quick. The compiler hook is an argument that you can apply to any field that, if set to true, will fire the compiler. Also, if it's a field that does dynamic CSS like typography or background, you can push CSS selectors, and then the hook will return to you also the dynamic Redux CSS that's dynamically generated for you. And so basically, you use the hook to say, anytime these fields change, I want to run this function. And then you'd stick in that function this code to generate your new variable string. You'd save your variable string out for less, and then you'd run your less compiler. Or you'd run your less compiler feeding this as the variables before you do the compile. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
bring up the sample config file.
Yeah,
it's right in there.
Let's look at that really quick. Sample. So let's find compiler. Oh. You've got this, Joe. Don't worry about it. So we've got an example. So we've got compilers true, so compiler action. So we have it commented out. You can uncomment it right now, and you can run this. So what happens is there are 3 values that are returned. The compiler action is returning the full option array. It's also returning the CSS should you have specified any CSS selectors. It's the same as output. Have you used output with Redux yet?
I started using output, and then I discovered the compiler, so I just started using that. And that's when I wondered. That's when I started thinking, okay, I don't want to have this long array of CSS selectors in that compiler deal. I just wanted to put compiler true, and then have it used as a variable. So yeah,
and that's
I can see how it's.
So you can do it both ways. You can put compiler to true, and then this value right here is empty. Or you can put compiler to an output, just like you would output, an array of CSS variables, and it will also pass for you the value. So then when you go in here, you can look at the changed values, and you could check for that in array that we just created. Where was that? I don't even know where my code went.
Less.php.
Thank you. So you can do this a couple ways. This is how this is how you save your users processing pain, because some people will just make it to automatically run all the time, which is pointless. So in here, we're going to go through changed values. So what I would do if I were you is I'd loop through this changed values, see if it's an array, and then I do a check. If not empty, well, you can't quite do that. I do instead this. Well, you'd loop through the changed values, so you'd have to do this twice. So this is how I would do it, Joe. I would go through the changed values to see if it's in array. I do compile equals true, and if blah blah blah, compile equals false, compile equals true. The reason that we're doing this is we're doing a quick little check of the changed values. If any of these changed values are the values that would change my CSS compiler. Now, if you're only using this for less files, then you don't have to do this extra check, right? Because you've already got that. But then you go through down here, and you are doing the typical thing like you were before. You're generating your variable, but you do a check on it. If compile, and this is saying, if we've changed a field that would change my less files, now I'm going to run this, and I'm going to run less compiler right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's step through this slowly again. If you put compiler to true, it's going to hit this action every time a field with compiler is changed. If you put any values in that compiler, instead of just putting it to true, if you put an array of CSS selectors, it's also going to return to you the CSS that would normally be output through Redux. And you can utilize that instead and put it in your CSS file. It's also going to give you an array of the actual changed values. In this instance, we're assuming that you're using Redux for various compile actions, not just for less files. If you were doing it just for less files, and that's the only reason you use the compiler, then this extra check here is unnecessary, the extra compile check. But what we're doing is we're looping through the changed values, seeing if any of those are in our less variables array that we're interested in using by a key, and if that's true, if that is triggered, if there's actually a changed value, then we're going to go through, loop through all of our options and set our proper less file arguments. And then we take that, save it to a file, or load it into our less compiler and output the file, and we're done. So I'll put this code up on Gist really quick so everyone can load it so you're not stressing out. But this is the exact same code that's in the sample config. And I'll put, when I upload the video, I'll also upload that this is up on Gist.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
If you have any questions, let us know. We aren't typically PHP, or we're not typical walkthrough people, you know, because it's not per se in our job description, but we'll help the best we can. So I'll be posting this next to the video, and you can grab it right now while we're talking.
Cool.
Let me just point out right now that if you're using Ajax Save and you don't comment out those echo lines, you're going to get an error that says there was a problem with your save. At that point, if you open up your JavaScript debug console, you will see the echo statements in there.
Very true. The reason being Ajax Save works by JSON, but if you're echoing before, then the JSON is obviously destroyed, and so that's a problem. So be careful with that. You might want to test this with Ajax Save off, so you could do an exit before your code is done running and see the response. So does that make sense, Joe? You'd basically put an exit right here, and then you'd set the argument to disable Ajax Save. That way you could continually refresh and test your variable string and test your compiler over and over and over again without ever having to hit save. Just do a refresh. Anyway, those are small little ways you can make your life easier. Okay, Joe, does that answer everything?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, Nathan Bunn, would you like to get on the air? Let's see. Unmute.
Well, Nathan's question is actually, I'm going to combine with a couple other questions just to get it all out there at once. They're asking about an ETA for the customizer and whether or not the crowdfunding campaign needs to be as successful as intended before any release is made.
Okay, well, the truth is this is a lot of work. And so if we're to work full-time on this, then we need the support. If we don't get the support, we're still going to do our best to make it happen, and it will happen before the end of 6 months. I'm guessing it'll be closer to 2 or 3 months, maybe 4 if we don't get the support we need. But if we do, we're not going to do any other jobs, and this is our entire focus. The reason that it's so difficult is because the customizer uses completely different things. It uses a lot of JavaScript, and we're going to have to change a ton of functions. On top of that, previously our Redux JavaScript object that we use to run Ajax Save, to run validation, etc., is based on a singular object because one panel, one JavaScript object. In the customizer, we need to change that to be able to be multiple objects based on each op name within the customizer. So there's a bit of reworking that needs to occur. It's doable. I hope that you can see through the demo that it's doable, and we're going to make it happen. We just need your support. If it gets crowdfunded pretty quick, honestly, it's going to be about a month, month and a half at most, because we've got it so far already. This is actually an extension that we had planned for 2 years. back before I started Redux 3.0, I was working on an integration where I took all of the SMOF fields and put them into the customizer. So I'm very comfortable with the customizer. It's just, it's going to be a bit of reworking.
A bit.
Okay, so now Tamar, let's see. Timar Aziz, I'm sorry if I butchered your name. You can butcher mine, Dovidas Pokštis. You said that that was your request in the last webinar. Now, are you talking about the CSS or less files? Because I guess
we're talking about the less stuff.
We could probably do that pretty easy, Kevin. We could just allow them to pass in an array, the less compiler. Yeah, so you now have the code. Do you still think that that's necessary for us to integrate into the core? I think a sample would be fine. Yes, Andrew Patterson, like we just said, if you do echo, it will cause an error. So turn off Ajax save in your argument so you can see that. And put an exit right here at the end before this file continues running. That way you can reload over and over again and test out the compiler save before you go on. So Timer, I can look at that and see what Shoestrap does. Okay, Redux can do anything. The question is, how much more do we add to Redux? The question is whether or not it's going to benefit a lot of people or a small number of people. And so we're fine doing things if it's going to benefit the whole. But if it's something that's so simple like this that they could probably do, I have a hard time putting it directly into the core because there's so many examples of it. Get on the issue tracker, voice your opinion, everyone, and we'll gladly update that and talk about it. And if there's enough response and enough desire and enough people go around, gladly we'll change anything. We just don't want to overload, because right now people say that Redux is too heavy, that it has too many features, which is quite a stretch for us, but it's there. So we want to make everyone happy. So Nathan Baum, the estimation for the customizer, if we get funded quickly, it's going to be a month or so after that, not too long. If we don't get funded quickly, it's going to be 3 or 4 months because we have to support our families. And to be honest, we need the community to make this happen soon. But it will happen eventually. It's just the time. Any other questions?
What is the fastest animal on the earth?
I have no idea.
The cheetah.
Oh, okay. Seriously, did
Edson something or other has his hand up here. You're on the air, Edson. Got a question for us?
He put his hand down.
He put his hand down.
Okay.
Nobody likes the personal attention.
Okay, Mohammed, you have your hand up again? Mohammed, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I already.
Oh, whoops. He was talking. You're back on the air now. Go ahead again, Mohammed.
I already asked the question.
Okay.
In the start.
Got it. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other questions or things you want help with? Programming? We're here.
Nivi wants to know, will there be a drag and drop page layout builder?
The truth is yes, eventually, but we're probably going to have to turn that also into a crowdfunding project because the time for that is huge. Right now we don't have it. And the reason we don't have it is we had one in the past. We had one that was fairly working, but we weren't happy with it. And with Redux, we don't want to release anything we're not happy with. We want it to be bulletproof. We want it to be as flawless as we can make it. And we hope that you can see that. Oh, one other thing to mitigate any questions that someone may have, developer mode. Developer mode now, at the request of our developers actually, is now forced for anybody that's using a local version of Redux. So if you're running Redux locally, developer mode will automatically be enabled. And also if WordPress debug, WP debug is set to true, Redux dev mode is enabled. Why did we do this? Because developers asked it. They forgot to disable dev mode. But rest assured, when you ship your product, as long as you have dev mode set to false, your users will never see those things. They won't see the notifications. They won't see anything. So there you go. Any other questions before we move on and end the webinar? We're here for you. What do you want to know? Tamir has another question. Okay. Afzal, let's, do you feel comfortable to be on the air? There you are, my friend.
Oh, hello, Davey. I didn't realize I was on.
Now you are.
About dev mode, so if a user is also working on localhost, dev mode will show.
Correct.
Oh no.
It is true. If a user is working on localhost and running it on their local machine, dev mode will be enabled. You're right.
Is there a way to enable it entirely then? Because I worry that some users might take it and if they're building a site for their client, think there's an issue with the product, rather than knowing it's how Redux itself behaves.
Well, when you hover over dev mode inside Redux, it actually notifies you why that's running. We just added that developer mode enabled. If you're not a developer, your theme plugin offers shipped with developer mode enabled. If it was they were developing locally, developer mode is enabled because you're developing locally. If it's because they have WP debug set to true, developer mode is set because you have WP debug set to true. We've tried to make it extremely simple. The main reason for this, I'm going to be honest. When developers come to us with problems from users, they often say, oh, line 1 of this JavaScript file is crashing. Well, the reason line 1 is crashing is if developer mode is set to false, it's no longer, it's compressed JavaScript. So every JavaScript file is line 1. And by doing this, getting people to use developer mode, it has actually helped with support and helped us to make your job easier, your world easier.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying.
You are so welcome. Okay.
I'm going to be talking with a British accent for the rest of the day now. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, there's another question. Let's see.
Tamir has his hand raised.
Tamir, unmute you. Go for it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Again, I apologize for my English. I just want to say something about Redux framework. Since the first time I saw this framework, I believe that it's an amazing one and it's a good option for all the theme developers. But I want just to mention one thing, maybe, and I believe that it affects its popularity, which is, if you go to the documentation of Redux framework, or if you listen to you guys, you believe that you made something for the developers, for the intermediate, at least PHP developers or PHP experts, let's say. But let's say there's a lot of developers or designers are making themes. They are front-end developers, actually. They are fluent in CSS and HTML. They have a little PHP background. So, like me, for example, I struggled to find a way at first since months, to know how to implement this framework into my theme at first, until I find a tutorial on YouTube in an Asian language, which I don't understand at all, but just I realized exactly how to make it happen. So I believe if you make some videos, short videos for the beginners, for the front-end developers, on how to implement, on how to make the first steps, your first steps in Redux framework, I think this will help a lot in getting Redux more popular.
And I agree. We actually have started on that. If you haven't heard, the Redux API is brand new. Did you hear about the Redux API?
Yes, I got your email about it.
I just posted my first article on Tuts Plus, and you're welcome to go read it. And actually, it feeds into this a lot. But we are going to be starting a learn.reduxframework.com that focuses on that has some beginning things, and then it goes into more advanced stuff. We'll be following the roots.io model and trying to you know, ask people to donate $10 or something for a video, maybe 50, whatever. But we're going to, the beginning, we are going to make beginning videos. But this is a great starting guide for anybody who wants to start out and doesn't understand the concept of Redux. Yes, it does take understanding arrays, but Redux is probably one of the simpler ones to work with. And with the Redux API, you no longer have to work with hooks unless you're using things like the compiler. So I invite everyone to check this out. Part 3 will be coming out later, which will talk about how to actually use the values that exist there. But yeah, please go to Tuts Plus and just look for Getting Started with Redux. You'll want to look at Part 2 because Part 1 was another developer, but I started Part 2 and I'll continue the series. It will be coming out later this month. Does that help?
Yeah.
And I will definitely be making a video. That's actually on my docket to do here really soon. I've just been side-blinded by the customizer change, right? So that's where...
The Redux API article on the docs site kind of has a sort of walkthrough in creating a config from scratch using just the API.
Yes, we also have, if you go to docs.reduxframework.com, there is a new one. It's called the Redux API, and this is a great walkthrough that Kevin put together as well. So if you, these two sources, and docs.redux and the Tuts Plus Part 2, if anyone reads this, they'll understand how to use Redux. It's pretty straightforward. And if you don't know, Redux comes embedded with a sample config. And I'm trying to load it, but my internet is going crazy. And that sample config is pretty much a Swiss Army knife of every option available within Redux. But we also have a basic sample config. So inside the Redux core folder is a sample config, and then there's also a bare bones config. Don't use any of the legacy stuff because that's all old, but you can use this. In the future, we've thought about building an actual panel builder. I think that's what someone was asking. You're saying a page builder, but we were talking about making a panel builder. We just haven't had the time to do that because there's so many things that we want to do with Redux. But we have to have day jobs. It's not, we don't get enough support from the community to only work on Redux. The only way we can get support through the community is donations or extension purchases, and we just don't have enough volume there. So give back. The more you give back, the more we'll put into Redux, honestly. Any other questions? Any other thoughts, concerns, help that you want? Okay, well, I guess...
I don't see any hands.
Yeah, I don't see any hands or questions. Okay, so just to recap, please go to ideas.reduxframework.com. If you're willing, please pledge a little bit. Help support the customized development. 2 of you have already supported. Bless you. We thank you. The more you help, the quicker it'll get done, but it will get done. Also, if you have any questions or don't hesitate to access our issue tracker. We are here to help. We will be doing a monthly webinar probably from here on out. We will be opening an issue tracker comment this next week, asking you for ideas. So if there's something that you would like us to talk about in the now June webinar, please let us know. And we are also thinking about and toying with the concept of a Redux boot camp. And that boot camp would be similar to this, except you would it would be a paid attendance. This is just, tell us what you think. A paid attendance, and in trade you get to ask us for anything, any question, any programming example, and we would come with the webinar with source code in hand for you to play with and a walkthrough and understanding of how that works. We're trying to figure out how to support our community and how to have the community support our effort, because we put a lot of time into Redux. So just let us know what you need. What's DF in DFW? Okay, Joe.
I'm not familiar with that acronym.
Joe, you're on the air. What's DFW? Dallas, Fort Worth?
I was just wondering, you're in Dallas, aren't you?
No. I'm in Utah.
Aren't you in Dallas, David? Oh, for some reason I was thinking you were in Dallas. I don't know where I got that.
But I'm always online. You're always ready. Always there. Oh,
I was just asking about the boot camp, where it would be located.
It would be a webinar like unto this. So we just host it online so anybody could do it. Does that seem like something you'd be interested in, Joe?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Oh no, not like a WordCamp. I see where you're going with that.
Okay.
How many people?
Not like a WordCamp, yeah.
How many people would show up for a Redux WordCamp? I 3? Maybe 4.
If they were local to it, they might, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And we're not opposed to. We want to do more publicity. We want people to understand more and be able to use it. So we'll try and do that. And if you wanted to be a local representative, we'll help you out. So let us know. Okay, so one more question. VAFPress, repeatable fields. We do have an extension for that, actually. And you can actually see it on the demo if you go to demo.redux IO. Or I can just go right here where it is. We have a full repeater field that we call it. Rather than groups, we call it repeater, just like everybody else. But you can basically put any field in there except for a couple. But it is an extension. We ask you to support the project by doing so. Purchasing it, and the subscription for extensions, basically it's a 1-year subscription. Use it in a product. Why do we do that? Because we need to support the project, and the project is ever growing. And we've copied basically the pricing from Code Canyon for an exclusive license. So yes, you can grab this right now, utilize it. You can throw any fields in there. And Kevin, we should probably beef this up and show different field types in there. But yes, that's completely available right now. Also, VAFPress had something similar to what we call Redux meta boxes, where you can take an entire panel and place it within a post type and use it just like you would any Redux field. And then as long as you're in a non-complex loop, like if you're in a single page, we'll actually override your global Redux variable. These are all based on, it's just Redux in a panel in meta boxes, or so you can do anything. So there's that example as well. We're here to help. If you want something built, let us know. On ideas.reduxframework.redux.io, you can actually submit ideas or features that you may need or want, and please do. We're here because we're here to make your life easier. Thank you for your time, everyone. Any other questions? I think we're done for the day.
Last call.
Going once, going twice. Have a wonderful day.